Hey guys, quick vlog to answer a question. When should you trash your CodeIgniter code base to move into a Python Django rewrite, or maybe you're going to rewrite it in another PHP framework like Laravel, something that we recently did. So that's always a tough question, because when you have an existing app that pretty much works pretty well, but it's such a mess, the code base is such a mess because of changing frameworks, different programmers, different developers have jumped on here and there. It just happens. When you are under deadlines and so forth, the code gets messy, especially when you have a turnover of new developers. It's something that I've always seen. In theory, you shouldn't do that, but when you got to get the project out by the end of the week, you start cutting corners here and there, and then, as I said, you got multiple developers, and you have a recipe for spaghetti code. This happens. So what should you do? Somebody asked that question. Should I dump my CodeIgniter spaghetti code app and move to Python Django? Well, whatever framework you're going to move to or language you're going to move to when you decide to dump the old code base, the dumping of the code base should be done only when you find that the app is so difficult to update that if you wanted to add new features, you're getting to the point where you're so worried that you're just going to break things every time you add new features. That, I think, is a sure sign when it's time to rewrite from scratch. And the reason you should be reluctant to rewrite from scratch because you're going to introduce new bugs. That being said, if you find that, especially with CodeIgniter is an old framework, and there's been a lot of advances in MVC frameworks since that time, and so you could leverage, for instance, PHP Laravel. It's far superior than CodeIgniter, or perhaps get into Django or whatever other modern framework that you want to look at. So yes, that's another reason to upgrade your old code base when you see that in a new MVC framework or a new structure would provide extra capability and functionality. So we recently did that with Studio Web, where the app is pretty much bug-free, but it's a bloody mess, written in CodeIgniter originally, and then we added in a Laravel-based microservices support app, if you will, to extend the lifespan of the CodeIgniter application, because the CodeIgniter ORM, which is ORM is short for Object Relational Mapping, it's basically a layer of code that accesses the database. In our case, it was MySQL, but whatever database that you're accessing, the ORM allows you to access the database more easily using standard PHP code or whatever language. They all have ORMs: Java, Ruby, Python, PHP, C#. All these languages have frameworks that have ORMs. Anyhow, so the ORM in CodeIgniter was this very old, but the problem was that ORM was the heart of the system. And so we didn't want to have to gut the ORM in the core system, because most of the system was fine, but some database server calls were getting way too slow. So what we did is we created a new app, a Laravel-based app, which had a much more advanced, more robust, faster ORM. And then we would connect to the database with that Laravel-based app, and then we would make calls to the Laravel-based app using a microservices type of framework, or design pattern rather. And then we were able to bypass the slow-ass ORM built into CodeIgniter. And of course, we just use JSON objects to exchange the data from the Laravel-based microservices app to the old CodeIgniter legacy app. Anyhow, so that's one way to extend your code base, is to maybe create another app that supports the old code base. Until that time, you decide to pull the trigger and just dump the old code base, because again, when you're rewriting from scratch, you're going to introduce new bugs. But if you're rewriting from scratch because you can take advantage of new frameworks, new ORMs, because you have a much better idea what the end app is supposed to look like now, so you can write it much more cleanly. Again, that was one of the problems with Studio Web. The original Studio Web was conceived of in this way. So I came up with the concept, I sort of laid it out, and we designed it this way. But as we deployed it in more and more schools and got more and more feedback from teachers and students, we were modifying the app according to the needs over the years. And it became like a Franken app, patch job, boom, 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 boom. Because we had to move quick, because we would get requests from schools that we need this is not working properly, could we have this? So we were just deploying on a need to nerd basis. We just had to get it out, get it out, get it out. And then finally, we stopped patching the core app. We created the microservices-based Laravel app, started consuming data from there, exchanging data with JSON, as I said. But it got to the point at this where just to do anything, well, not to just do anything. There's a lot of things we could have done and not disturb the whole thing, but there's a set of core functionality that we're going to be introducing into Studio Web 4 and going forward, and to be able to introduce those new capabilities, to rely on the old CodeIgniter app, which has a 7-year-old code base, it just didn't make any sense at this point. It was too much. So we took that decision to let it go, to seal that up and move on to a new version. Just like with Python, since we're on the subject of Python. Python 3 was brand new rewrite. It wasn't an extension of Python 2x. It was brand new because they had to change the fundamental aspects of the language. So now you have 2 branches of Python. You got the 2x branch, I think they're at 2.72 last time I checked, and then you got the 3x branch of Python, which is at 3.6, 3.7 will be out pretty soon. So they're very similar in many respects, but there's some core aspects of each version of Python that are not compatible. And they had to do it for whatever reasons. They felt they needed to create a whole new version of Python as a result of the needs of the language going forward. So think about that with regards to your app. These are the considerations that you should consider, which you should look at when you're deciding whether or not to drop a code base. All right, I hope that's helpful. And I did this vlog today because I'm avoiding doing my accounting paperwork, but I'm going to get the calls. I'm going to start getting the calls from the bookkeepers any day now, so I got to get to it. Ciao.